Hey guys, in today's video we're going to be talking about owner-operators. There are generally three ways to become an owner-operator in today's market. So number one is the traditional financing, number two is leasing a truck, and number three is buying a truck outright. So some of our viewers have asked us to explain the difference between leasing and financing to become an owner-operator and what are the pros and cons of each scenario. So in today's video, I'm going to be going in detail about financing, leasing, and buying a truck outright. For some drivers, financing is a much better option than leasing with a carrier. But for many other drivers, leasing is the better option. It depends mostly on your current circumstances. Before we dive into the pros and cons of each, I must say and make a note that both options require a great deal of commitment and experience. Do not attempt either one of these options unless you have at least 2 years of driving under your belt. The reason I say that you need a minimum of 2 years is because you need to learn the ropes. You need to give yourself the time to understand the industry, to understand which division within the industry that you want to go into. With that being said, let's get into it. Hey guys, my name is Ronan, and I want to personally thank you for watching this video. I am the son of a truck driver and currently working as an operations manager for a medium-sized carrier. Growing up, I heard a lot of complaints about the trucking industry, and now that I'm working in it, I hear it all the time. I wanted to create a channel in order to unite North American drivers, share my knowledge, educate drivers to become more successful, and one day to make a positive impact in our industry. Some concerns that I have in our industry revolve around hours of service, driver compensation, parking for drivers, and safety on the road. These videos on this channel are not meant for recruiting purposes. When we unite, we can make a difference. As me and my team continue to produce high quality and interesting videos, I do need your support in order to make a difference. Please subscribe to our channel. And if you like what you see, give it a thumbs up. I hope you enjoy this video. So financing. So this is the traditional way of becoming an owner-operator. It's when a driver goes to the dealership, buys a truck, puts a down payment, and the remainder of the balance he finances through a bank or a financial institution. So an example of this would be somebody walks into a dealership, looks at a truck, buys a $100,000 truck, puts the down payment of 10%, which is $10,000, and then he finances $90,000 of that. So we're gonna talk about the pros and cons of buying the truck in that manner, which is financing the truck. The biggest advantage is that you're not tied down to a carrier, to a single carrier. If things don't get to work out with the carrier that you're working for, you could just get up, give your notice, and leave to another carrier. The second advantage is usually there's no big buyouts when you're working directly with a financial institution. A lot of companies, what they do today is they put in, when you're leasing a truck through them, they'll put in a very big buyout, and you never end up buying out the truck because the buyout amount is greater than what the truck is worth after the 5 or 6 years. And the third biggest advantage is that with a finance company, you can make a double payment or a triple payment, or if you have a really good year, you can pay off the balance of the amount that you're owing. Now let's get into the disadvantages of financing your truck. So number one, you need good credit to be able to finance your truck. The second thing, you might need more money up front to finance a truck as opposed to a lease purchase program. So the dealerships will say that, if you don't have 10% down, we're really sorry, we won't be able to do the transaction. In most cases, the finance companies, they want on used trucks about 15 or 20% down. So you really need to have that money up front. Your credit can get affected if you miss a payment. So if you're financing the truck and if for some reason, whether it doesn't matter what month it is or what the personal situation is, if you miss a payment, it will get reflected on your Equifax report and ruin your credit. In worst case scenario, if your engine blew up, you cannot work anymore, these finance companies are brutal. They will come after you. They will come after everything that you have. They will come after your car, your house. They want their debt paid, whether or not the truck is working, whether or not the engine blew up. So you really need to be careful of big repairs. And I see that as the biggest minus and downfall of financing through a bank. You will need to come up with the money, whether the truck works or whether it doesn't work, and you will need to buy them out. The last disadvantage is the banks really don't care on the term. So if you're buying a used truck, a 3-4-year-old truck, and you're financing it over the next 6 years, the banks really don't care, especially if you have good credit and especially if you have assets. So you really need to be careful of the way you're leasing or financing through a financial institute, that the duration will be for as long as the truck can work. So if you're buying a 3 or 4-year-old truck, there's no need to finance it for more than 4 years. You're just setting yourself up for failure if you do. So now let's go into a lease purchase program. We're gonna talk about the pros and cons of working through a carrier. So the lease purchase program often have a bad reputation on online forums, YouTube, and amongst truckers. So why is that? Many people believe that the lease purchase program are designed to trap truckers with bad credit. And you know what? From what I've seen out there, it's true. There's a reason why these lease purchase programs have this reputation. Forcing the drivers into an unfavorable contract and profiting off them. There have been many horror stories of malicious carriers who do not give their lease operators enough miles and pay the drivers, never get to own their own truck at the end. This, however, is not always true, because on the other side, there are also many successful stories with lease operators, with drivers becoming owner-operators and getting a fresh start. I've put a link right here to our most recent video on how to spot red flags in a lease purchase program. Watch the video, you'll learn a lot from it. So now let's get into the pros. So the advantages of leasing through a carrier. If you do have bad credit, if you're gonna finance a truck, they're gonna charge you an arm and a leg. I've seen 18%, 22%. If you go through a carrier, the carrier really doesn't care too much about your credit because you're working for their company and they're gonna guarantee the lease payments from your pay. So you can really take advantage of that. So instead of working as a company driver for years and years until you fix up your credit, you can actually become an owner operator through the company that you're working for. Companies that have a lease purchase program usually have their own shops, and their shop rates are a lot better than the rates that are out there. Just an example, I think Volvo and Freightliner, I think their hourly rates right now with their shop rates are about $165 an hour. Usually when you work through a carrier, their shop rates are about $95 to $105 depending on the carrier. So when you're doing a lease purchase program through the carrier, you're usually taking advantage of their shop rates. And make sure you ask this before signing a lease program. Make sure that they don't bill their own owner operators at $100 an hour and their lease operators at $135 an hour. So talk about the hourly shop rates before you sign your lease program, because you will save a lot of money in the long run. The third advantage is flexibility on the down payment. So if you are going to finance a truck, they're gonna ask you to put 15 or 20% down. When you go through a carrier or a lease purchase program, they're gonna ask you to put something down. I don't know, every carrier has a different amount. Some carriers give away the trucks for free. Other carriers, they would charge a $2,500 down or $5,000 down, depending on the truck that you choose. But it's a lot easier to save $2,500 or $5,000 than it is to save 15 or 20. Another huge advantage would be waiting time. If you are going through a dealership, from the time you buy the truck to the time you get the financing approved to the time you get the plates from the carrier, that would take you about a month to do. When you're signing a lease program through the carrier, it's instant. You sign the paperwork and overnight you become a lease operator. So that is a huge advantage. Now let's get into the disadvantages of a lease purchase program. The disadvantage is that with very few exceptions, you're most likely tied to one carrier and cannot switch companies. So this is the biggest downfall of a lease program. Nobody's gonna allow you to take their truck and go to a different company while the trucking company, are responsible for the payments on that truck. So the lease program only works when you're working for that trucking company. So the second disadvantage with leasing are the rip-off terms. So I've seen a lot of terms and contracts from carriers where it's just unfavorable to the drivers. You really need to read what you're signing. What is the buyout? What is the monthly payment? What's the actual value of the truck that you're buying? Are you buying a 2018 unit for $175,000? Well, you could buy a brand new 2022 today for $185,000. So make sure you look at the purchase price. Make sure you look at the financing or the interest rate that they're going to be charging you. So look out for rip-off clauses in your contract and run if you see them. The third thing, surveys say that many truckers receive less miles than they were promised. You might not get enough miles to support yourself, and the payment. Or bad carriers may purposely give you less miles halfway through the lease to delay your completion. Some trucking companies that I've heard of, what they do is once you are approaching the end of your program, the end of the 4 years, on year 3 and on year 2 and 3, when you can expect some repairs on your truck, they also limit the amount of miles that they're giving the drivers to purposely make them not complete the lease program. All right, so now we completed the pros and cons for leasing a truck. We also did the pros and cons for financing a truck. Purchasing a truck outright, yeah, right, it's 2021. Who in the world has $150,000 just laying around where they can just outright buy a truck? I've maybe only seen 2 or 3 bills of sales in the last 15 years where the driver just bought a truck outright. Usually it was somebody who passed away or a will that was left behind, and the driver, or they sold the property and the driver went and bought a truck. If you're able to buy a truck outright, do so. You won't face any problems with financing. You will not face any problems with carriers. Because if a carrier does give you a problem or lost their contract, you just get up and you leave to another carrier. For those who are thinking of either financing or leasing, going through a lease purchase program, my recommendations are, if you're able to buy a truck and pay for it in full, do so. Second thing is, I do not recommend a lease purchase program if you have 1, good credit, and 2, a healthy down payment. In today's world, when I talk about healthy, I would expect at least 20% down on a used or new vehicle. So if you have your 20% down and you have good credit, you should not be leasing a truck through a company. Be aware of the purchase price and the financing interest rates. Do not go with the dealer's recommended finance company. 99% of the time, the dealership gets a kickback from the finance company. And what they do is they lift your interest rates up. So if you have good credit, you should be qualified for 6%, 6.5%. I've seen them as low as 5%. I've seen them as high as 18 and 19%. Now, you might not think that paying $2,200 a month or $2,400 is a big difference, but that can equate to the difference between having a 5% or a 9% interest rate that they're throwing on you. So make sure, go home, go to your branch, go to your home branch, whether you're dealing with TD, RBC, Scotia, you should be trying to finance that truck through your home branch or through the financial institute that you deal with. And also, if you're going to use the dealership's finance company, have them compete against other companies. Don't just say, okay, finance my truck and that's it. Have them compete against one another. Use 2 or 3 financial institutes to give you a quote. Make sure you highlight every single one of their interest rates. You can decrease their interest rates really fast. So if you went to option number 1 and told them, listen, I have option number 2 at 6%, you'll see how fast they come back at you with 5.5%. Don't be afraid to negotiate with them. So when do you sign a lease purchase program? So if you are lacking the down payment and or have bad credit. So I've interviewed hundreds of drivers. A lot of them are in a situation where the last truck that they drove, or they were an owner operator, the engine blew up, they couldn't pay for their repair, they lost their truck, they've invested all their money that they had in that truck. That story is really common. And the second most popular story is divorce, the ex-wife or the ex-husband that completely shot their credit, and now they don't have credit and they also don't have money. That would be a perfect candidate, an ideal candidate, whether it's those 2 scenarios. Your credit is, you don't have credit, and you cannot see in the foreseeable future that you'll be able to save $15,000 or $20,000. It's funny, sometimes I see drivers, I'll see them, for example, in 2020, and the driver tells me, listen, I really don't have money. And I say, okay, I understand, I'm really sorry. You can't sign up to the lease program. You really need some sort of down payment. He says, okay, I'll be back in a year, or I'll be back in a little bit. I see the same driver, whether it's 12, 13, 15 months later, a year and a half has passed, and I asked the driver, I said, hey, how you doing? So, you're ready to sign on the lease program? And he says, no, I still don't have that down payment. Situations with finances, from what I see, they don't get much better year over year when you're working as a company driver. And the reason for that is because when you're making $4,000 or $5,000 a month and you have $4,000 or $5,000 in expenses, plus you have another $10,000 or $15,000 in debt, it's very hard to climb out of that debt making the $4,000 or $5,000 every month. If you were to make $7,000 or $8,000 a month, then you should be able to climb out of debt much faster. So before you sign on with any carrier, Make sure you research them, research the carrier online, read the reviews, read the bad, read the good, and make a decision for yourself. With the recruiter, it's okay to ask a recruiter, can you give me a couple of phone numbers to talk to some of your drivers? I regularly give a couple of phone numbers to drivers, whether they're in the flatbed division, dry van division, or even local guys, just so you can get a comfortable feeling on who you're signing with. So definitely reach out to a couple of drivers, or if you see them in truck stops, why don't you ask them, hey, do you mind if I talk to you for a couple of minutes? And you'll notice that a lot of drivers will give you the time of day and go over. I give you 10-15 minutes of their time to talk to you about the company that you want to go into. Ask around online, hey, has anybody heard of this company? There's a lot of trucking forums out there that you can ask and get the good and get the bad, and then you can make a decision for yourself.